So in the last class, we looked at Formik and Yup, and I explained the course of the class that there are two ways to use Formik. Now, the reason I'm teaching us, or the second way, the reason I'm teaching us the second way is, firstly, you can't use Formik with a class component. You can't. This is a functional component. So you can easily use a React hook. This is a React hook. You can use React hook with functional components, but you can't use it with class components. So in case maybe you want to work on a project that has been, maybe that was built with class components, so that in case you want to use Formik there, you'll be able to get your way. In fact, that's the primary reason we are looking at this. So instead of bringing in use Formik now, of course, for that reason, we make some adjustments. We got in use Formik and we called on the function here. As it's use Formik. So we remove all of this now. All of this. Remove it. We still have our initial values. We still have our yup, but we are not going to use this Formik. Instead, we bring in something called Formik. Then we bring in something called feed. Bring in something called form also. So we are going to use this three: Formik, feed, and form. We can also use error message. All of these things are coming from Formik. Inside this library, in our last class, we installed Formik. So inside this Formik, we are bringing in Formik, we are bringing in feed, we are bringing in form, we are bringing in error message. So let's do them one after the other. So let's start with this Formik. For now, I'll just comment out this form. I'll just comment out all of this one. Okay, good. So in your Formik, you use all of these things as components. These four of them, use them as components. So come here, Formik. This Formik, inside it you put a callback function here like this. Of course, whenever you want to write JavaScript, you put it in this. I come again, you bring in Formik. Inside it, you put a callback function like this. This callback function can now return your form. Note, this form is capital letter F, is in uppercase, is this form here. If it's small letter, that would be the one in HTML. But this is uppercase. You are using the one in Formik. Let's just it. Any questions so far?
No question. Well done.
Okay. Now, just like we did in our last class, we set in our last class we set the initial values of our form. We set some other things. Okay, let's first get this inputs. Let's get all of this. The reason it's not reflecting is because I'm here to save this code. This is unsaved, so that's why this is still saying the last code. We want to do this. So let's do that together. We're going to make use of this feed instead of using inputs. Right? We make use of feed. So I'll just copy these out of this place. Just cut and copy. In fact, let me see if I can just copy all of them. Okay. But instead of using inputs now, we make use of this feed. Feed. Okay, then this will also be feed. I'm trying to use the shortcut bar. Feed. 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 Can I remove this now? No. Okay. So we have this. Let's save this. Okay, then of course this is going to throw back an error because of these parts. There's no first name, so you remove this. There's no unchange, you remove it so that it's not going to throw back any error. So we can leave it like this. Remove this. We are bringing back value. Let's just have this for now. Remove this. Scroll down. Okay, I just use this as a button. As a button. Let's say this will also throw back an error, so let's remove it. We are going to bring back the error handling part later, but for now, let's just remove this. This one's so let's format things. Okay, so let's go to the browser and see how it looks like. So we have it's loading. Oh, for the first name, let's fix that one. There is no label. I think we've removed the label. So okay. So I wrote FOTS. Let's put S. So here are our inputs. Next is we want to ensure that our inputs have initial values, just like we did in our last class. So you come here, you add it as props to this Formik. You know this is a component, right? Components can have props. So you come here and you add a prop called initial values. And the value of the initial values will be this one. This here, initial values. Any question? Do you get what you're doing?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when we get to the browser, okay. Now, you may ask that how is able to note that this should be here is because of this name property. This name. So it's going to map this name with the keys here. Do you understand? It will map whatever name property someone wants to join. You are welcome. So it will map whatever name property you give it with the keys of these objects. So because the name here is first name and the key here is first name, so it will take whatever value here and assign it to this feed. Then let's also create our function in case we want to submit the form. That is, when you click on submit button, the function that you're going to call upon this button, and click on this register button, the function that will be called upon at that point. So you come here and let's do it this way so that it will be readable. We create another club called on submit. What do you want to do when you submit this form? I think you're going to have submit function here. Okay, let's do it here then. So when you submit this form, you call on this function console log hello. So let's see if that is working. Click on this button. You have this. You have this. Hello. Now it's calling on that function. What we can do is we want to get the values in this form. When you try to submit the form, you want to get the value. You see this on submit, it can be a parameterized function having values. You can also console log values. These values will be the values of your form. It will be whatever the user fill into this place. So let's check that together. Now you can see it is now. Okay, let's fix this error. Submitted a Formik form using a button with an unrestricted type. Okay, so just come here. It's a submit button. Type submit. Okay, so that error should leave now. Okay, so we have this. Maybe to make your work a bit neater, instead of putting this here, you can create a function out. Maybe form submit or maybe const submit registration equals to okay. Let's cut this one out. So instead of putting this here now, you just put this function name submit registration. So when I click on this button, it will run the codes. You did this function. Any questions so far?
Yeah. My question is for this function submit registration.
Yes.
You know the values here is a function. I mean, is a parameter on its own.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I want to confirm these parameters. Is it the same thing with that of the how will I put it? You know, there's a value in Formik already.
Okay.
So what makes difference? Because if you submit is looking at the submit registration, so I just want to know the correlations. Or if possible, if you can just change the name of the parameters so that
okay,
I won't get confused.
You mean this?
Yes.
Okay.
So that I won't get confused with okay.
This stands for the values of this form.
Okay.
This
which one stand? The A?
Yes, this A stands for whatever the user fills inside this form.
Okay.
So what happens is when you click on that button, it maps this. Remember I said this name attribute is very, very important. It uses this name attribute to map each of these feed with your initial values. Right? I think I said that at the beginning of the class. That the reason it's able to know that this tile should be inside this feed and not in this feed is because the name of this is first name and the key here is also first name. Right. So that's why it's able to know. Also, when you submit the form, it's also going to use the same name attributes and create an object called values, and that is what is sent to this. When you say console log A, it will console log that object. So there's going to be a key value pair. The key first name will be whatever, the value will be whatever you have in this place. The key last name will be whatever you have in this place. Do you understand?
So if I want to get now,
Okay.
even irrespective of the function written with the parameters, so automatically the parameters will know that the forms, the values on the form are the parameters automatically.
Yes, it's going to use this name attribute and automatically pass it to this on submit. When you click on that submit, it will automatically do that for you. It uses this name attribute.
Okay.
Alright. Thank you. Now, we did something in our last class. We tried to ensure that our form didn't submit when some conditions are not met. That is, maybe this needs to be filled, first name, last name, and all of those things. We did that in our last class. So let's do the same thing here. If some conditions are not met, your form should not submit. That is, it should not run the codes within this place. It shouldn't. So, in our last class, we make use of something called validation schema. Also, today we still use the same validation schema. That's why I said, that's why I didn't delete this. Right? That's why I didn't delete it. Because we still make use of it also in today's class. So you have something here called validation schema. And the value will now be this. This for your yup. It's going to be this variable. This one we use to handle the validation of our last class. So we use the same thing here. So you say the value of this is that validation schema. It's not must to call this validation schema. Let's say you can call this, I'll just say ABC. I'll change it back to validation schema, provided this is also ABC. You understand? The props, this must be validation schema, but the value is whatever you call your yup. Is whatever you call your yup. So but let's run it back to this. So with this now, if the conditions in our validation schema, if the conditions are not met, our form will not submit. It will not submit. So it's not going to do this for us. It won't. Let's try to see if everything is working fine. So let's try to submit this form. You see, our form is not submitted. It's not consoling anything, not sending anything to the console. Any questions so far? Can we proceed?
Yeah.
Okay, that's one number.
Yeah.
Alright. So let me change back to values so that it's always good to use your rights. I hope you are getting it. Now, lastly, we want to display the error messages. So that in case our form is not submitting, you want to know what's wrong, why is it not submitting? That's what the essence of this error message. We've used this three, we've used the Formik, we've used the feed, we've used the form. So lastly is turn off this error message. If there's an error, the error message handles that for you. Error message. It's going to have a name property, and the name property will be the value of the feed that you want to manage, use it to manage. I want to use this particular one to manage the first name. So this is going to be name, first name. I just copy this. I want to use this to manage the last name. In case there's any error in the last name, display it here. So this will be last name. Then this will be email. There's an error at the email address part. Display it here. There's an error at the password also. Display it here. Then if there's an error at the confirm password, display it here. Okay, so now if our form is not submitting, you will know why it's not submitting. So you can see you already have the errors there. if I fill this now the error has gone. So if I try to submit now, of course it won't go because of these two errors. Provided they are the same, now my form can now submit successfully. Any question? So this is how to make use of Formik to undo your form and use of Yup for your form validation. Let's quickly recap. We've got saying Formik, feed, form, and error message, all of them coming from the Formik we installed in the last class. Then we've already defined our Yup, our validation schema. We've already defined that. Firstly, you start with this Formik. It returns a callback. Here is it here. It returns a callback. It returns a callback. So inside the callback, you have your form. Instead of using input, you make use of feed. The name attributes will be the name of each of the feeds that will be in your form. Formik uses this feed, this name attribute, to know how to manage each of the values. Then, if you want to set initial values equals to you put an object here. This, so this will be the initial values of your form, and it uses this key to know which of these feeds you are referring to. It maps the keys with the name. Then we have our on submit. Submit is the function. You put the function here. That's the function you want to call when you submit your form. Then validation schema. You make use of your Yup for your validation, and that's all about it. So, question before we call it a day.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, my question is, I want to ask if all these, let me say, modules from Formik,
Okay.
is the Formik handling the method of sending input? Like, when you want to send something, you use that code method or get method. So, are we not worried about methods when you're using Formik handling for us?
Are you not to?
Like, are we not to worry about which method we want to use to send the data?
Okay. Okay.
Like either post or get.
Or get. Or
Is it being handled for us by?
okay. Thank you. I think in the last class we talked about that. Inside this function, that's where you submit your form. You can use Axios. So you can use that post. You use it to post the URL, then the data you are sending, the URL, the data you are sending. If it's Axios.get, you can also put that get here. But I think Axios.get here, the URL. But of course, oftentimes when you are sending some, especially things that requires password and all of that, make it a post request. The URL, then since it's going to, it's something that will take time. So you can make use of your async await or your then. Then I think we've handled that in one of our classes. So this is where you send the values to the back end. Axios.post, Axios.get, if you're using Axios to do that, or if you're using the JavaScript fetch API to just inside this function, that's where you send it to the backend. That's why you ensure that the codes inside this function are not executed until all the conditions in your Yup are met. And that is what this validation schema is doing for us. This validation schema ensures that whatever this submit registration is not called upon until all our conditions are met. I don't know if you are satisfied with the answer.
it's clear. It's clear.
All right, so any other question? Okay, so in our next class, we're going to look at state management. We look at use contexts, and that will later launch us to Redux also. Thanks for coming. Good night. Have a lovely night rest.